Now, if you're smart, you've already realized that I'm doing something pretty simple. All the numbers that I've been multiplying together or dividing have the same number of significant figures. So maybe you're asking yourself, okay, this seems easy enough, but what would I do if I had to multiply together or divide two numbers that didn't have the same number of significant figures? What if, like, for example, one had 5 and one had 2? How would I round then? Let's take a look. Let's say that we have 62,881, and we want to divide that by 97. I put that into the calculator, and the ugly answer that I get is 648.257732. Let's look to the numbers that we have divided in the first place. Well, 62881, there are 5 significant figures in this number, but 97, there are only 2 significant figures in this. So what do? Do we round this to 2 numbers? Do we round it to 5 numbers? Do we add them together? Maybe round it to 7? The answer is that we always use the lowest number. There are only 2 significant figures in 97, so we're only going to round our answer to 2 significant figures. This digit stays and this digit stays, and as before, we look to the right to figure out whether we round it up or keep it the same. It's an 8, so we're going to round it up. The 6 stays, the 4 becomes a 5, and we fill everything else in with zeros. So our answer here is 650. Let's look at a few more examples of numbers that we have to multiply or divide that don't have the same number of significant figures. Let's look at 5,621 times 893. The answer that I get there is 5,019,553. Well, you've probably already gotten the hang of it. Look back at the numbers I multiplied together. 3 significant figures here and 4 significant figures here. Remember, we always take the fewer number of significant figures. There are 3 here, which means that we're going to have to round our answer to only 3 numbers. This place stays, this place stays, and this place stays, and I look there to figure out whether I keep it the same or round it. It's a 9, which means I'm going to round it up. So we get 5,000,000, 0, the 1 becomes a 2, and as before, everything else just turns into zeros. And now 218 divided by 26. We get 8.384615.4 when I put this in the calculator. But again, I'm going to want to round it. 3 significant figures here. See, this is going so quickly, it doesn't take any time to learn. 2 significant figures here. I always go with a lower number. 2 significant figures. This stays and this stays. Blah, 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 blah. Look there to round up. And so what I get for my final answer is 8 point, I'm going to round my 3 up to 4, 8.4. Final answer. Now, here's a final example. This type of problem often trips up students because they just don't think that it can make sense. But it does. I have 59,411. If you're paying attention, I can already tell it has 5 significant figures. I multiply that by 2, and I get 118,822. Students think, I know how to round using significant figures, but I can't believe that that's right. It is right. I look here, 5 significant figures, and I look here, there's only 1. Even though it takes a little getting used to at first, that means that I'm only going to round this number to 1 figure. This digit stays, everything else is going to become zeros. That's because the lowest number of significant figures was 1. My final answer can only have 1 significant figure in it. I look at the 1, I look next to it to figure out whether I'm going to be rounding it up or keeping it the same, and it's a 1, so I'm obviously going to be keeping it the same. That means that I'm going to have 1 and everything else is 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 100,000, that's my final answer. So significant figures really aren't that hard once you get used to them and you do a couple practice problems. In the next couple lessons, we'll look at using zeros in calculations, because sometimes if we have zeros in significant problems, it can get a little bit tricky. And in the lesson after that, we'll look at how to add and subtract numbers with significant figures.